What is up, you squirrely scoundrels? 'Tis I, Z Gaming Guy. Welcome to Z Talks. If you don't know how it works, typically weekly, maybe longer, I like to ask some questions, get some questions from you, answer them, but before we always go to that, I always go back to the previous questions and look at some of your guys' answers and kind of go further into that. As weird as it is to hear me say this, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate a like. If you didn't, dislike. It just is good feedback because you know, I like to see that and see, okay, they like it this, they don't like that, so it's cool to have some feedback, so please do consider. But with that said, the first thing I want to go back to is the topic about microtransactions, and while typically I would pick out a certain, comment and put that up maybe and read it and stuff like that, the general consensus from like everyone was that they are okay with them as long as they're just cosmetic or not pay to win, and if you can earn them in-game. And that's totally understandable, and I think that's pretty much what 90% of the people who don't like microtransactions think as well. Now, I will say, I've always been one who I hate pay to win, or any kind of shortcut. Even single-player games is a little like, maybe not, but I still don't really like it. However, with Monster Hunter, I've been playing a lot of that lately. There's definitely times where they're like, oh, you need 3 Wyvern gems. And I'm like, can I just fucking buy this, please? I don't want to grind for the next 8 hours to get one, just because my luck is terrible with that. So I definitely see, depending on the situation, the temptation to break. If the option was there, I absolutely probably would have bought like a Wyvern gem or something. So I'm glad that a game like Monster Hunter doesn't have it, because I probably would have done it. But yeah, so I'm glad we're on the same page with that. So I just got to looking through the comments again. That was really the only thing people replied to, so I'm going to move on to the current questions. So the first question is coming from, of course, Ray, saying, my question this week is inspired by your teleportation cloning idea. What if somehow we could back up our memories into a cloud like an Altered Carbon? I only saw episode 1 so far, so no spoilers please. And your wife was unfortunately killed. If you could buy a body clone of her and upload her memories into it, would you do it? If so, would you ever tell her she was the clone or how she died? That's a heavy question right off the bat. Of course, leave it to Ray to ask those kind of questions. So, would I... First, let's answer the first part. Would I revive her? With her memories intact and stuff. Well, that seems, on one hand, it does seem like a very desperate attempt to cling on to what you've lost, and it kind of shows an inability to move on. But I guess it's one thing because I know what's happening, but let's just say she went out and she got killed without my knowledge, and someone did this without my knowledge, and she came back, and I had no idea. Then it would have been more fine, you know what I mean? But knowing she's a clone, I wonder how much that'd be in the back of your head. I mean, I think eventually there'd come a point where you just accept that this is how it is, and whatever. But there'd be a good decent amount of time where it'd be hard to get past that thought. Like maybe you're talking to her and you're enjoying it and you randomly start crying because you're like, man, this isn't even, she died, But I think I might do it though, honestly. And as for would I tell her she's a clone and stuff? I think so. I think too much problems would happen if you didn't. Because there's the chance that, let's just say you didn't, and a year passes by and someone else slips up, and now you got to deal with the why didn't you ever tell me thing. So I'd rather just be honest from the beginning. Though I could definitely see it from her perspective, feeling inferior, feeling like you're not gonna love me as much as you love the original or something, and that could call it like it's just a whole fucking clusterfuck of issues. So maybe it'd honestly be better to not do it in the first place. But I don't know, man. That's a tough one. I probably would tell her and probably would revive her. How about you guys? What would you do? And this next question comes from Aristides. I don't know how to say the last part. Hopefully I even said the first part right. Do you think that life in prison is a harsh punishment for someone, let's say murder, or do you think it's well-deserved? Also, don't forget that in prison, they go through bad experiences, essentially. Personally, I think, well, it depends on the circumstances, I suppose. Like, if it was self-defense, that's different. But if it was like a planned murder, or if it was like a robbery murder kind of thing, honestly, you can get the death sentence for all I care. It might be harsh, but you got to think too. how much of our tax money is going towards keeping these people alive. These people who don't treat other lives with any sort of respect, we need to pay to keep them alive. That seems kind of weird, doesn't it? So, I mean, I have my own thoughts on like the prison system and everything, but I'm not going to get into that. But there's definitely like a certain level of, okay, once you reach this level of like disgustingness in terms of what you did, you should just be offed, in my opinion. Like, we don't need to waste time with this person. They're probably not going to get any better. And it's, like I said, it sounds harsh. And I think, though, that, like, you need to have, like, a stern, like, stance on some things. Be like, this is not acceptable. Like, there will be no wiggle room. You try to do this, you're just going to get killed because this is unacceptable. You know, because there's so many times where, you know, let's just take internet trolls, for example. They do what they do because they don't think they'll be caught. But let's just say something came out where if you were being a douche and you were telling people to kill themselves or whatever, let's just say there was somehow a system where they found out who they were and they would go to jail for X amount of time. I think it would get toned down a lot. I think it would still happen, but like until like there's definite repercussions for crossing a certain line, I think people are always going to tempt fate. So I think just being very stern and be like, no, you know, you don't deserve life if you can't treat other life with respect. I think that's kind of the better solution to me. And again, that might be controversial, but, you know, that's fine. Controversial because both sides are right. I feel like I make good points. I feel like anyone who's against me would make good points too. So I'm interested in what you think about all that. Lisa asks, what is your understanding of DMT, the Fibonacci probably, sequence, and the Lateralis tool? Would you ever try Maynard's wine? Literally, I've never heard of these words before, so sorry, I can't really answer that. So the next one is from, of course, the infamous Terminator 00666. There's a long post, so I'm just going to summarize it. I'll put the whole thing up on screen as usual. He is basically saying every time a president goes, whether it be Democrat or Republican, the other party will always say that that president's ruining everything. Do you think that's true or not? That was essentially what he's saying. I think that a president doesn't have enough time to really ruin things as much as people want to think. Like, I definitely lean a little more towards Democrat, but I don't like some of the things they say. I don't like some of the things Republicans say. So honestly, I'd consider myself kind of more neutral and just agreeing with whoever says the right thing. I think that's how everyone should be, and not just blindly following a particular party. But like, when you're given only 4 years, that's not a whole lot of time to really improve things and see significant change. I think honestly, like, you need 10 years to have things really go into effect, and you need to have like, or at the very least, like-minded people to continue what you were doing and to go into the same direction. Because right now we're just doing a tug of war that's never going anywhere. Because every time someone builds something, like one party builds something up, the other one comes in and crushes it and tries to do something else, and we're not getting anywhere. So I think that even if they wanted to fuck everything up, they don't have enough time. Unless they... I mean, I am worried about Trump just because he can say the wrong thing at the wrong time and start a war. Because he's just that kind of, you know, like schoolyard kind of bullshit guy sometimes. He'll be like, well, I have the biggest penis in the world. I think Putin has a really tiny penis, and I think his penis would take 10 of his penises to make my one penis. You know, and you're like, God damn it, Trump, like, why are you saying this right now? But again, Trump sometimes says things that I agree with. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, you know, like, a lot of the times you say things I think are really weird. You belong more in a reality TV show than as a president, but occasionally you say things I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. As you can tell, this is apparently a very controversial episode. Here's an interesting question by Youngblood. Do you think Microsoft is lessening the value of owning an Xbox by putting their exclusives on PC as well? Kind of, but kind of not. Because if you wanted to own a console, like if you were going for something, like, okay, if you were going to own anything, whether it be PlayStation, Xbox, or PC, and it's just yourself, you're going to go for the PC, assuming money's not an issue. The reason you go for console, in my opinion, is either because your friends have it, or it's because it's cheaper and easier to handle. PCs, obviously very nice, and if you have a good one, they can run things very well, and there's a lot of customization towards it. But it's also a really big fucking hassle. When you go to play a game and it doesn't work and you don't know why, a folder's missing or something. So it's really annoying. That's why consoles are really nice, because you put in a game and it just works. So I think that it shouldn't affect it that much. I think the people who are affected most are people like me who own every console plus the PC. So if a game comes out on Xbox and PC, I don't know, I might still lean towards Xbox just due to simplicity and how much, like, you know, my friends have it and stuff. So like I said, I don't think it's gonna, you know, do too much harm, but I'm glad that they're doing it still. It's definitely consumer friendly, so I'm not gonna complain. Okay, that was it for the questions today, guys. But I did want to go over something briefly. This probably won't really relate to you guys, but I am kind of putting word out there for mods and anyone who potentially becomes a mod as well. So I have a system in YouTube, right? Well, not me specifically, but YouTube has a system, let's say that, where they can filter out negative words, basically. Like, there's some things that YouTube itself will filter out and say, this doesn't seem right, is this okay? And I get to approve it. But there's also certain words I get to put in that say, I don't want this. If this word is, someone comments this word, then put it to the side and I'll judge whether it's worth putting in or not. And I'm saying this because this will go for anyone who thinks about doing this as a warning. I'm not going to tell you exactly what words I'm not allowing, because then people will just try to find ways around it. But an example is when people go say kill yourself, KYS or whatever. Since I have a lot of different ways of saying it, that stuff is not acceptable. I'm not going to tolerate anyone being rude to anyone else in the comments. And I just want to put that out there. Like, I feel like this should be obvious, but we're here to play nice, okay? Like, when we talk about these things too, these controversial topics like today, I still expect some decency in the comments. And if people don't follow that, I might delete their comment, give them a warning, or I might just outright ban them depending on how offensive they are being. And I'm fine with, you know, dicking around and stuff, that's fine. But, like, when it comes to racial slurs, telling people to kill themselves, that's unacceptable. And I just wanted to put that out there because maybe you just don't know. Maybe you're young and you think it's fine. It's not, though. When you grow up more and you realize the repercussions of these actions, or what should be the repercussions, and what you can be doing to people that you're saying this to, I think you need to understand that it's not okay. And I think that should be spread, and we should be nice to each other, respectful. So hopefully that sits with you guys, some of you guys who are thinking about doing it. Maybe do it sometimes, and for those of you who can, stop it. And also, if someone is doing that and you notice it before I do, please don't go in and just start bashing on them, call them an idiot, and blah blah blah. You know, if you're gonna say something, be polite. Still say, look, there's no need to say this here. If you apologize now or something, Z won't ban you. But this isn't something you should be saying. You know, something like that's fine. Sorry, this is such like a heavy fucking episode all of a sudden. Started off with some heavier topics than I expected, and then this, but you know, I felt like it had to be said. I guess while we're here, I'll address something else too. So when people comment something like, why are you bald, or whatever, I mean, you guys already know, but I'm just gonna ignore it. If you comment, are you gonna make X, Y, or Z levels in Mario Maker anymore, I'm gonna ignore it. If you're gonna ask me, are you gonna play Mario today, or play Mario or something, I'm gonna ignore it. You need to understand, I see these kind of things every single day, and it just gets old. So I'm not going to even pay attention to it anymore. So if you are saying something, especially if you're spamming it, I notice, trust me. I'm just choosing to ignore it because I've answered it many, many times again. But I did figure these are some things I should go over, given that there was a recent boom in subscribers for whatever reason. So I feel like saying these things occasionally to remind or just inform the newer people and maybe remind people who forgot. That's just kind of how the Z Gaming Guy channel works sometimes. On a side, slightly more positive note, we're closing in on 70K. Is there anything in particular you guys want to see for the 70K special, if any kind of special? I wasn't planning on it, but I feel like we've been at 60K-ish for a very long time, so maybe I should kind of put something out a little different, whether it be something Mario related or not Mario related. Maybe it's just a really long like stream session. I don't know. I'm kind of curious if there's anything you guys want in particular. I'd like to put this in your hands for once. Unfortunately, I can't do any giveaways because I'm fucking broke right now. And one last thing before we go. So PewDiePie, we all know him. We all have our own opinions on him. And for me, a long time he was kind of like just there, you know. recently he'd been more of a talk show kind of thing, and it's been a little more enjoyable to watch him occasionally for me, just seeing the insight of someone who's been doing YouTube for a very long time. It doesn't have to be PewDiePie in general, but just, you know, he's the YouTuber, you know, he has 60 plus million subscribers, so hearing his perspective is about as good as it's going to get, I feel, especially given that he's a gamer channel as well. So recently he put out a video talking about the journey to YouTube. It's called like, watch this video, or don't start YouTube before watching this video, I think. And in it he kind of goes over what it's like to try to rise in YouTube. And it's a very interesting talk because it's pretty much dead on. Like the boom that every channel may get from a random video or a particular series, and the decline in momentum that will inevitably come. And sometimes you question like what you're doing wrong, which I did, of course. You try to work harder, you try to do more videos, blah blah blah. And he mentioned in there that there's going to be people who stick around for a while but eventually get bored. And I think that's true, you know. There's not many channels that I myself have even stuck around with for a very long time. Like I think MXR Mods, I really like he's just funny, even though like I don't ever get the mods, I just like watching him, but then I kind of stopped for a while, got back into it, so you know, it's a back and forth thing, so I understand. And what I'm trying to get at here is, for myself, I feel that I'm a little too comfortable with my current formula. And I feel like it's time I need to do something different. And when I think about that, I think like, okay, let's say I'm advertising myself to someone who wants to promote a channel. They say, okay, what separates you from other people who do the same thing? And I'd probably just, I don't know, I'm bald. And I guess that's ultimately what it comes down to, is what is like something that can be done to make the channel have a little more flair, you know? And back when I first started YouTube, I was very like active with you guys. I was always like, oh, what should we do next? Where do we want to go? You guys are going to steer the channel. And while I still would like to think I'm like that to a degree, I'm definitely not as much anymore, just due to, you know, asshats of the internet. You just kind of start to tune out comments after a while because you're just so like, whatever, like these guys, they don't mean anything, like they're just trolls trying to get on you. So I guess point is there anything, let's go back to asking you guys, is there anything that you think would be a fun little thing to do on the channel? You know, something unique, maybe something we can do once a week or every video or something like that, you know. And I know some of you guys want to say incorporate skits, and I'd like to occasionally. It's just kind of hard just due to my other job, but that shouldn't really be an excuse, I don't think. So yeah, I'd love to hear any tips, and maybe you know, if there's some really good ideas, maybe I can even do a poll on Twitter, be like, hey, are you guys interested in any of this? Or maybe I could just do them all. Or if no one has any good ideas, then guess I'll have to do something myself, god damn it. But yeah, I just wanted this to be a little more of a collaborative thing and see if we can all come up with something kind of cool. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Today's video was definitely a little less lighthearted, so apologies if that's what you're hoping for. But hopefully you enjoyed the video nonetheless, and I'll see you in the next one.